Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. So it is absolutely time for this war to end. Um, you know, any war is it is horrid, and there have been many lives taken here. The media reports on the fact that 280 some Ukrainians have died, civilians have died in this, and 533 have been injured. That's from the latest numbers that are being reported. Although they don't report on, the 14,000 people in Donbass that have died over 8 years from being attacked. So this war, as I've stated before, it began 8 years ago. It did not begin last week. Okay, so when I say that this war needs to end, let's go to the very beginning. Nobody has to agree with Russia's decision to take this action. You don't have to agree with it to understand it. They tried for 8 years with diplomacy to prevent this from happening, and it was to no avail. They have discussed the issue repeatedly at the UN to try and get Ukraine to honor the Minsk agreement. But, even if we can say that, some action was justified, I think it should have been far more limited. After the first day or two of bombing military targets, then it should have been scaled back, not scaled up. The use of ground troops was probably completely unnecessary. So it is good that Ukraine and Russia are still talking to each other. That's the best thing. The media probably is not reporting on the fact that Russia and Ukraine jointly have established humanitarian corridors for the evacuation of civilians. Other good things about this is that Russia has sent hundreds of tons of humanitarian aid into Mariupol, which interviews with the residents of Mariupol, which is part of Donbass, says that they have had food shortages for years because Ukraine had cut off many supply lines and limited the amount of food going into Donbass, food, medical supplies, etc. So, that is warfare in itself. Just denying people food and medical equipment, medications, and stuff like that, that is warfare in and of itself. Russia's sending humanitarian aid in there. The nuclear plant incident was highly overblown by the media, extremely so. I watched that video, and that was not a shell. For it to have a trail like that, a shell does not have an illuminated trail. And it did not look like a missile because it didn't do enough damage to be a missile. So what it looked like to me was an aerial flare that failed and wound up hitting a parking lot. That was a parking lot in that video. And I saw a car that was on fire. And the reports coming out now is that there was a fire in one of the buildings, but it was a training facility that was apart from the operational plant. Now, they're talking about, they had to shut down 5 of the reactors. No, 5 of the reactors were shut down before this. All right, so of the 6 reactors on site, 5 were already shut down, either for lack of need or for maintenance, apparently a variety of reasons. So the fire had nothing to do with the operations of the plant. The 5 reactors being shut down had nothing to do with this. And even the operators, the people working at the plant, say that the Russian troops are not interfering with the operation of the plant. All right, so, and the fire was put out, within a couple of hours. So all of that was just hyperbole. It was completely overblown, exaggerated, meant to make you fearful. But obviously, with nuclear reactors, there is a danger. If there are adversarial forces that are actually fighting each other right there on the grounds of a nuclear plant, then there is absolutely a danger involved. So, these are real dangers. If you're bombing military targets, missiles can go off course. Anti-missile defense systems can go off course. If they miss their target, they don't just cease to exist. They land somewhere, and you may not be able to predict where they land. And I think that's where a lot of damage is coming from. So, war is horrid, and this needs to end. But Russia's security concerns and Donbass, the human rights of the people in Donbass, the democratic rights of people in Donbass should absolutely be taken into consideration. Hey, what is a country but a collection of people? Forget the borders. It is a collection of people that agree that they are going to live in, a community. When people across 2 regions, a collective region, the Donbass, do not feel safe for very good reason after being shelled for 8 years, even at the very beginning. If they felt like they were not represented and they were in danger, which was proven correct, then those people should have the right to secede and establish their own independence, their own autonomy, without being attacked. If you're in favor of democracy, if you're in favor of peace, you recognize this. Anyone should recognize this. Why do you want to keep the people of Donbass in Ukraine The fact that they've invaded and taken over half of the region of Donbass tells you it is not about the people at all. It's about lines on a map. And that's it. So, no, this needs to be about human beings. The United States and NATO are not helping. They are not doing anything that is conducive to a peace process. Providing more weapons to Ukraine is only going to prolong this. Russia is not asking Ukraine to surrender and be absorbed into the Russian Federation. They're asking Ukraine to disarm and become neutral and to discuss, make arrangements for mutual security. I mean, Russia has learned from their own past and from our past. If you try and occupy a country, it depletes your resources, it eats your resources, and it builds animosity. Look at Russia in Afghanistan back in the 1980s. Look at the U.S. in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and wherever else you want to name that we are occupying. Look at Yemen. Look at Palestine. If you really support human rights, you're against all of these things, and you recognize that Russia has a legitimate security concern with NATO putting nuclear weapons right on their border. This is a legitimate security concern. Donbass has legitimate concerns and human rights that should be considered. So hopefully these talks are going to reach some kind of at least tentative agreements so that the military activity stops. And hopefully that happens within the next few days. I do think Russia should stop the bombing and stand down. Doesn't even mean, leave the area, but stand down. But of course, they're going to be under attack, so they have to respond to that. And that's why the ground troops were unnecessary. If you can't see each side of this, I'm absolutely against it, but I'm against what brought it to this point. And you cannot look at one without looking at the other. All right? Share this video. Talk about these subjects. If you care about human beings, you care about all human beings. Stop looking at, Russia, because Russia is human beings, and you can't hate all Russian people. Am I responsible for what my government and my military does, the atrocities that our country has committed in other countries? I've had no part in it, and in many cases I have protested against these things, even before they actually began in many cases, because I care about human beings. I don't care what country they're from. I don't care if they have a different form of government, a different economic system, etc. Anyway, Uh, you know, there's a lot more about this to consider than just Russia bad. You know, you look at the thousands of Russians that have been protesting against this too. All right, so share this video, talk about these subjects. If you can, please donate $1 a month to help expand the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one.